Hello, testing, 1, 2, 3. This is Noah Bentley, and I'd like to make a recording of a combat situation I was in 1951 Thanksgiving evening. The day before Thanksgiving, the night was 9:45 a.m. and we were on an outpost in North Korea where the Chinese would hit us about 9:45 p.m. at night, and the battle went on for hours and hours, and I was a radio operator at the time, and I was not supposed to be a fighting soldier. I was supposed to keep communications with the main line, and I was 19 years of age, and when the battle started, I had communication, and then all of a sudden I couldn't reach anyone. So the communication chief, I found out later that he had got wounded, and that's the reason I couldn't have a contact. And the company commander, he was in a bunker, and he was an alcoholic and he was probably drunk at the time, and he wasn't being communicated with, so so after I couldn't reach anyone on the front line, main line, I went out to see what I could do to help. And so after the battle went on for an hour or two, why, some of our machine guns got knocked out, and so we had the platoon sergeant and the platoon runner. They were the two that operated the machine guns after they got knocked out, and they operated for another couple of 3 hours, and the one machine gun burned up, so they had to transfer the one machine gun that was still working while they would transfer it from one tripod to the next tripod, and depend on which way the Chinese were coming toward us. And they did that until they were either killed or wounded. And so the battle, after about 5 or 6 hours, our position was overrun, and we was gathered with the lieutenant in charge in the trench, and what few men that was left alive, and wasn't wounded, why we were all together there in one spot, and the Chinese were lobbing grenades into the trenches, and so the lieutenant discussed to us that so if there's any man here that's able to escape this, I would like for him to try to get through the Chinese lines and go back to the main line of resistance. And so that gave me an opportunity that I thought that so I looked up, I prayed, and I said, Heavenly Father, if it's your will, guide me out of here. And at that time, a voice in my mind came back, said, if there's a will, there's a way. And I said, God, you know I've got the will. Just show me the way. So I started looking for a route to escape, to get through the Chinese. And so going through the trench, a grenade went off underneath me, and it had shrapnel in my right leg and right arm. And so I crawled out of the trench and started crawling down the hill. And I had to go through the previous machine gun position where the Chinese were trying to break through. There was a pile of dead and dying Chinese. So the quickest way I could get beyond that was to crawl over top of that pile of Chinese. So I crawled over top of that pile of Chinese, and on top of the pile there was one young man dying, and I crawled up beside of him. He looked at me as if that I was there to help him, but I could not help him. I had to move on, and I crawled off of that area and went underneath the barbed wire that we had around the double apron fence, we called it. And so in the meantime, then a buddy of mine was crawling down with me, and we went under the last barbed wire together to try to get through under it, so we could get on down the hill and get out of the traffic of the Chinese. And while we were underneath the wire, we were just about out of it, a Chinese officer walked up and discovered us, and he had hollered for pallbearers to come and get us, and because he discovered we were alive. And so just a few seconds later, there was an artillery round that went off just a little above us on the grade of the hill. And so he was standing and we were flat on the ground. All of the shrapnel went over top of us and wiped out that Chinese. And so that gave us a break to crawl down the hill a little bit further there. So we crawled down about 35, 40 yards and got out of the traffic, and we just holed up there until we could see the last of the Chinese going off of the mountain. And when the last of them went by, well, we crawled around the hill and went over the finger, and we was heading back toward our front lines. So we got off of the mountain, and the way my friend was wounded, I was surprised he could move so rapid and quick and active. So he was jumping over top of bushes, and so we made it to the roadway where we came out to that position, and we was walking cautiously up that road, and I seen a ledge there. It was still dark, and under this ledge was like a rock cliff and a opening under there. So him and I crawled in there and stayed until daylight. And when I woke him up at daylight to come out of there, well, we got on the road and we started walking toward our main line, and we met a major that was leading a platoon to come out and check on us. So immediately he ordered us in a vehicle and hauled us out. We was going to a hospital, a tent hospital nearby for emergencies. And so there we both underwent surgeries to pick the shrapnel out of their body. And so I was so exhausted I went to sleep, and I didn't wake up until the day after Thanksgiving. So that pretty well covers the story that we made it out, and I was hospitalized in South Korea for 42 days. While I was in the hospital, my unit, they moved out and went to Japan. And then I was in a Sweden hospital, and here they marked me up for duty, and they just put me back in the replacements instead of sending me to my unit while they was going to ship me back to the front lines. So I had to get a nice chaplain that he managed to reverse my orders and to put me on a slow boat to Japan. And I went back to a unit in Japan of the 1st Cavalry Division, and I stayed there the duration of my enlistment, and was finally sent home for discharge. And the day that I left Korea, and I was on the boat on my birthday, the 11th of January, and I just turned 20, and so I was so happy to be heading toward Japan. So God bless, and see if I can get this on a disc, and thank you very much. Bye bye.